This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to downrigger@montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Hello again, everyone. Downrigger Dale here with another Montana Outdoor Podcast. And we're continuing our series on how to find the right boat for you. Been getting a lot of great response from all of you. I really do appreciate your emails and that. You probably heard Manny just a few minutes ago give my email out. And, feel free to use that anytime for questions and that. That's a great way to get in touch with me. And Manny will give you that at the end of the show as well. Of course, with me again is my partner in crime and on the water, the captain, and he has got another great guest. Now, this is a name you've probably heard of if you've ever been through the Glasgow area. That's Mon-Dak Marine. They've been, in the boating business for 25 years. The new owners are Mattt Cowen and his wife Stephanie, and they bring well over 20 years of all kinds of expertise. So basically, Mon-Dak just got even better when Mattt came on board. And Captain, you've known Mattt a long time, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Mattt and I first met when he was working at Shields. I had some, and this is probably surprising to you, Downrigger, had some issues with my electronics.
Really?
Hummingbirds.
Now that's something
I think it was after you were on the boat.
Couldn't have been me.
You screwed everything up. So Mattt was nice enough to take a phone call, and so we've just had a dialogue for a number of years. Mattt is well known across the state of Montana and actually beyond the borders of Montana for really knowing his stuff when it comes to Hummingbird, Lowrance, and Garmin, all those electronics. And when he decided to buy Mon-Dak Marine, I was surprised, but I guess then I thought about it a little bit, and I wasn't surprised. Tell us a little bit about this decision of being the supervisor, fishing supervisor at Shields and Billings, to buying Mon-Dak Marine.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was one of the hardest decisions that my wife and I ever had to make, right? Coming from the comfort and the family of Shields of 20 years to moving north, a little bit colder climate where we're used to in Billings, and kind of going all in with my passion with boats and electronics. And I did work with Brandon and Renette Babb a little bit, the previous owners. They set up a promotion where when they sold a boat, they would hire me to come up and go on the water with the customer and make sure everything worked the way it's supposed to and kind of shorten that learning curve. But it's been the best decision I've ever made. I think my wife and my boys might differ since I don't get to see them as much. They're still in Billings as we're building up here in this area, but super thankful for the community, and I'll tell you what, the future's bright.
I know that Bill Zaradka, who is the salmon slayer, had you on his boat. Time Off, that's his boat. That's the name of his boat. And you went and showed him. He bought some brand new electronics about 2 years ago, something like that. And he was really impressed with the knowledge that you had, as well as how to make those electronics a lot more efficient.
Sure. Yeah. Bill's a super good guy, man. I've learned a lot from him with the time I got to spend in his boat. And Yeah, when you get to work on a big giant Woolridge pilot house like he has, and put a couple of big graphs in there, and then have them perform the way they're supposed to, and we get to see the fish react to our baits. Yeah, it's super fun.
So the reason I bring that up is we're not going to really be talking about rigging boats on this podcast. We got another podcast that we're really looking forward to you doing. In fact, some our buddy Taylor Michaels at Jason Mitchell Outdoors, you just did a podcast for him on rigging boats, and I guess according to what Taylor told me, it's one of the most sought after podcasts that they've done in quite a while.
Yeah, that was a good time. Taylor and I kind of got to dive in a little bit with what we call clean power and electronics, and just making sure we set ourselves up to have the units work the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, that I was going to bring that up. That's gonna be a great show. So you folks stay tuned with us, and we'll be informing you on that. And if you subscribe to our podcast, you'll get notified. But that's going to be a really good one. But you got to have the boat on the water first, and that's what we want to talk about today. Is finding the right boat, and then Matt will be able to outfit it with everything you'd ever want, and you'll actually know how to work it, unlike the captain.
Well, I tell you, he carries some really top-notch boat lines. In fact, we know about one of them. We did it with Kent Anderson. We did from Warrior Boats. We did a podcast, and he's got a lot of Warriors that he's going to be rigging up this year and is rigged up last year. He also has a line, the Yar-Craft line, which I think that's one of your personal boat that you use.
Yeah, right now I'm driving a 219 Yar-Craft, and we carry some nice boats. There's so many good boat dealers around. The way that I tell a customer is just like a truck. You have to go drive them. You don't know exactly if that's the right fit for you based off of the specs. But yes, at Mon-Dak we carry Yar-Craft, Warrior, Crestliner is our aluminum side, and then we just recently signed with Camus boats as well. So we've got a few of those on the way.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit about Camus. I'm not familiar with them, but let's address the Crestliner. Crestliner is a real popular line when it comes to the jet boats for you.
Yeah, boy, I'll tell you what. The Crestliner line of the Retrievers, it's a center console. We offer 3 different versions there, anything from 16 foot clear to 20 foot. And, with the river being here and early ice coming off, maybe hopefully by mid-May this year. Yeah. Guys will get out there. They're easy to use, very versatile. A lot of hunters use them. So pretty lucky to have that line.
Matt, you've got kind of a unique situation there. Being in Glasgow, right next to, Fort Peck Reservoir, one of the largest reservoirs in the world, it really gives folks the ability to not only, look at the different lines you have, and the different lines you have are very diverse, and we're going to get into why you would pick one as opposed to another, and maybe talk about some of the uses in that. But also with the reservoir right there, people can, hang out down by the marina, talk to a few people about why they like using this boat or that boat. And then I assume if we got real serious and said, gee, I kind of like this one, do you take your customers out on Fort Peck then and give them like a test drive?
Oh, absolutely. I've got, not only do I have some great pro staff that help out with those lines, but when a customer is looking at investing their money with me at Mon-Dak, they definitely need to drive it. And I recommend driving the exact boat they want to buy. That way they know they've got some confidence that it does what it's supposed to do.
Well, we talked a little bit about Warrior. I own a Warrior, a 203. Let's talk about this Yar-Craft boat. They did a total redesign about, 3 years ago?
Yeah, they redesigned what they call the TFX model. They start in the 186 side, and then roll 209, and then the 219 is their big dog.
And you carry that line. It's your boat that you use. Tell us about some of the features when somebody gets into a Yar-Craft. What do they like about the Yar-Craft over other boats that they choose?
Well, the thing about Yar-Craft is the beam or the overall width of the boat might not be as wide as some of the competition. Let's say, even a Warrior. It's just a different design. The bow is big. You can easily fish two guys on the bow of a 219 or a 209 pretty easy. They've done some work there. Behind the windshield, which is the console, it's really nice for guys that are pulling cranks. So there's pros and cons to every boat. They're pretty quick. So if you think you need to hammer down and outrun somebody, you have that option as well. Super dry ride. Everything comes with zip wakes and that big 219 side, which is the trim tabs, automatic trim tabs. It has a GPS. It just does it for you. Super smooth. You don't get wet.
You brought up those. Hang on a second, Reggie. You brought up those trim tabs. How does that work? The GPS trim tabs.
So the zip wake system is a vertical trim tab versus a horizontal trim tab. Probably, I don't know. Do you have trim tabs on your Warrior?
I do, but they're manual.
Yep, and it's probably a Bennett or a Lenco or something like that, where you manually do it. Where these ones have a program, a little receiver that's mounted on your dash. You plug in some information based off of the length and width of your boat, maybe how much it weighs, and then it automatically adjusts the trim tabs for you to make sure that you're always level in the water, no matter where your customers are sitting or the load. And then, of course, you can tell them to turn off at a certain speed because, let's be honest, once you get above 40, sometimes it really doesn't matter.
Matt, if I remember right, one of the unique things that Yar-Craft has, and I don't know if it still does, is that in addition to the trim tabs, the motor actually can go up or down. I've never seen anything like that. Is that something Yar-Craft still does?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is called a jack plate.
Yeah.
Warriors aren't doing jack plates just based off of the design and the performance. It really isn't needed. But a lot of times in big waves, it's nice to bury that motor on the vertical side. Or if you're taking off in shallow water conditions, you can bring the motor up, get up on plane. And then it helps with top end as well. So there's some good benefits to a jack plate, and those can be added to any boat at any time.
But are they standard on the Yar-Craft, the jack plate?
Yes, every Yar-Craft that I order, for the most part, comes with usually a 6-inch hydraulic jack plate.
Yeah, that one really surprised me, and I thought, what a neat idea that, especially in Fort Peck where you've got real diverse water from very deep to very shallow and all that. Do you find that's something that is primarily the fishing crowd that likes that, or is that used for pretty much everything out on Fort Peck now?
Yeah, I think it's just mostly fisherman driven. I think most people are using it for speed, where I think that there's a lot more opportunity to teach people how to use it for your boat to perform better in rough conditions. So I don't know of any cons with it with a jack plate. The pros definitely allows you to get that motor out of the water, which could allow you to save a little fuel and keep that RPMs up too.
And Fort Peck just happens to have a few rough waves every now and then, doesn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, those days when the wind blows, it can get pretty big.
And that is so nice to have something that can handle that water.
Absolutely. Anything 20 foot and up in the fiberglass side of things seems to really perform well in that big water.
Norm Sellerud and J.R. Rasmussen were a very successful duo. They don't fish together now. I think they fish with their families individually. But Norm gave me a test drive on the Yar-Craft because he must be one of your pro staff guys.
Norm and JR are just fantastic customers. JR drives a 209 with a 250 on the back. Norm drives a big 219 with a 400 racing on the back. So he's definitely one of the fastest boats out there. And they're beautiful.
Wow.
So you get into a Yar-Craft. Is that primarily targeted towards anglers? I mean, do you see families? If a family comes in, are they going to be steered toward Yar-Craft, or is it, because usually, if one of them, husband or wife, sometimes in today's world, you never know, the wife might be the fisherman,
Sure.
and the husband maybe doesn't do it, but is a Yar-Craft kind of a boat where it's primarily just for fishing, the ones you're talking about, the way you rig them?
Oh no. Any of the boats that we sell here, I do have the ability of adding a ski pole system to it. Um, so yes, they're built for fishing, but if you want to go pull tubers, any of them will do it. Um, Sometimes the back deck on a Yar-Craft is a little bit wider than some of the competition, which is nice if you decide you want to lay down, take a nap, or do something like that. Most of my Yar-Crafts do come with a sea deck flooring, which is very similar to Aqua Traction. Aqua Traction is coming in all of my Warriors, and I'll tell you what, that stuff is really taken over. Carpet is almost a thing of the past.
I know. I mean, I didn't get one of those because my Warriors are 2017, that flooring. I love the looks of it. I love the feel of it. Old Marvin Loomis, Marvin.
Oh, yeah.
Marvin and Connie. Marvin he always fished with his shoes off. He'd be barefoot when he was guiding, outfitting. And, on my boat, the way that flooring is, it'd be a little tough to do that on my Warrior boat. But the way that you call it Aqua
Traction is what's coming in the Warriors.
Yeah. It's just it's better than carpeting because it's, you can.
It cleans up real nice. It's a real soft. It's a closed foam material, so it doesn't absorb any stains. Cleans up awesome. Most of these boats come with washdown systems now, to where if you catch as many salmon as you do, you got to clean that blood up somehow.
And Rigger, carpeting is like you and I. We don't clean up very well.
Yeah.
This is a new technology. They cleans up pretty well.
That's something that I wish maybe you could cover my body with that stuff. But Matt, let's get into a few scenarios here. When we've been talking with our listeners, we get a lot of different questions, and that's why we started this series on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. Was people were saying, okay, I know I want a boat, but I want to be able to find someone that can help me figure out what boat would be best for me. I kind of have it in my head what I think I want, but you're talking about boats nowadays. That's a substantial investment, and you want to pick out something that's right for them. So if, for example, one of the scenarios that came to us was, okay, I'm going to retire, and what I plan on doing once I hang it up is I'm going to be fishing, and that's what I'm going to use my boat for most all the time is fishing. So what would be some of the things you would ask me if I came in to kind of help steer me in the right direction to find the right fishing boat for me?
Oh, yeah. We call those qualifying questions. And the first thing that I would say is, well, where do you do most of your fishing? Mm-hmm. Because let's just say you're fishing Canyon Ferry or some of these other reservoirs that maybe you don't need a 21 or 22-foot boat. And then I would say, well, what's your favorite style of fishing?
Okay.
If you're mostly in the bow of the boat 90% of the time, well, that allows me to make a few decisions on what I can recommend just based off of space. How many people are fishing with you normally? If you've got 4 people fishing with you all the time, maybe we need to look at something different for some room behind the windshield. Do you like a windshield? Do you like bubbles?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Things that can be added to the boat based off of its current situation.
Now, those are really good things to consider, because when you start asking those kind of questions, that begins to set it up for the person to say, well, gee, I didn't think about that, but yeah, it's usually just me. And I like to, pop the old electric troller in, and I love to sit at the bow. And so that's going to guide him in the right direction. So those are good things to bring up. When you have an expert like you're probably going to ask them. But if you end up somewhere else, then folks, you need to be thinking about those kind of things and doing that. Now, let's talk about for the fishing season. if I'm back the same guy and I say, I love the fish, but of course, maybe about 4 months out of the year, now I need a way to store that thing so that it's going to, keep well over the winter and all that. I don't have the big outbuilding. That's something that I know Mon-Dak does, and that is to do the shrink wrapping and that. Is that something that you can handle for people? And talk a bit about that, because I think that's a really neat service that you do.
Yeah, the shrink wrap has been really popular. It just protects our investment. If you can't put it inside, and that's fine, even if you can put it inside and you want to cover it, keep the mice out, keep the dust off the cover, it's pretty simple for us to do. We have to do it inside. We've done everything from 34-foot twin outboard motors to a 16-foot aluminum. It really is a nice investment to keep the water off, and it just doesn't move. It's bulletproof. And
you can go ahead and tow that once you guys have shrink wrapped it, right? It doesn't hurt it to tow it around.
Yep, it's a one and done. If you're really careful when you cut it off, you might be able to reuse it, but most of the time, it's a one and done.
The great thing, if you could, is if you could shrink wrap the boat with the captain in it. That would be great. Then we can just keep him quiet.
Stuff with shrink wrap. Yeah. I think we could probably still hear him in there yelling.
Yeah, we probably could.
I was going to say that the first time Downrigger went into Mon-Dak Marine, he spent a little time with Matt, and Matt didn't have to ask him the question, do you fish by yourself? He already knew that you fish by yourself.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Well,
so when we come back, Rigger, I want to ask Matt about this Crestliner jet boats that he carries. Everywhere I go in this part of the country at Fort Beck, there's a Crestliner jet boat.
Sure.
It's real popular. They must love it over here. They know the boat, and we'll find out a little bit about those. But we need to talk a little bit about one of our sponsors that help bring the podcast here, Rigger.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about Superior Hardwoods of Montana. Now, these guys, ever since they started sponsoring the show, I've been getting more and more people asking me about it. Is it really? Do they really have that much stuff? Yeah, the captain and I spent some time at Superior Hardwoods. Over 100,000 square feet of flooring is in there. The list goes on, but to me, the thing that I find incredible about Superior Hardwoods is the selection of everything from the most exotic woods you could think of like olive wood or cypress wood or that to make the most unique, man cave you've ever seen, down to just good quality flooring at a good price. To me, that amazed me a lot, Captain, was just the sheer diversity of everything they have.
Well, I know it doesn't take much to amaze you, but it was very amazing when we walked through there. We spent like 2 hours with, looking at wood. And the only reason we spent 2 hours looking at wood is because John, Corey, and Shannon are so passionate about Superior Hardwoods. Now listen to these names, Rigger. Redwood paneling, mushroom cypress. Can you imagine going into the hardware store or the lumber yard and saying, I'd like to have some mushroom cypress. I'm going to put it in my den. How about some buckboard fir or corral board? They actually buy, for some of you ranchers that don't use your corrals anymore, don't burn them.
Yeah.
John will buy them from you.
Yeah.
He'll buy the wood from you.
In fact, one of the things we saw there was that they had taken down an old mill and repurposed that wood, and it was amazing. That's going to end up in somebody's home. So Superior Hardwoods of Montana, they're located in Missoula. If you're going south out of Missoula towards Lolo, you're going to see them right across the street from the big Peak Athletic Center there. Stop in. They love to have visitors, and they would love to just help guide you through the woods at Superior Hardwoods of Montana.
Yeah, it's superior-hardwoods.com. Go to their website. Great people. Okay, let's get back to Matt. Let's talk a little bit about Mon-Dak Marine, obviously, and we're talking about Crestliner. You also have the full-line Crestliners, too, but I want to focus right now on the jet boats.
Okay. Yeah. So most everything on our jet side is a center console. We can order them in a side console if a customer wants, but it seems like the center console is the most popular. They start with a 1660, so just a little over 16 foot. Everything comes powered with Mercury 4 strokes. That one would be a 9065. That means 90 horsepower at the power head, but you lose 30% once you start putting it through a jet pump. All of these boats, for the most part, come with a tunnel hull, which allows that motor to be just up off the bottom of the boat a little bit, allows you to run in a little bit skinnier water. 3 inches of water when you're rolling, you can feel the boat get slick, so to speak, and it comes up. It runs pretty good. Just don't slow down when it gets skinny, hammer down. The next size is the 1860.
I wanted to just jump in there real quick, Matt, and ask you one question because we're right on a topic that one of our listeners sent an email to me. Jeremy and Helena asked, I like to go out on the rivers. I like to go on the smaller reservoirs, but I don't have the budget to buy 2 different boats. What dictates why I should have a jet boat or a prop boat? So maybe you could help guide him a little there.
Yeah. If you're going to run the river and you are going to run through water that's 1.5 feet or less, it's going to save you a pile of money running a jet, right? If you're running a prop, which there's some great prop guys out there that can do it, these lower units on a prop boat can get really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's thousands of dollars, not to mention when you start messing up props, lower units, things like that. So these jets perform just fine in the smaller bodies of water. I've even had them on Fort Peck. You just have to pay attention, they're not necessarily a modified V, but they have enough of a V to where, you can get through some decent waves. It's not the smoothest or the driest ride, but you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
So if a guy just wants one boat and he's going to fish any river system for the most part in Montana, I just don't know if he can go wrong with a jet boat.
Jeremy, we'll give you some contact information too if you want to discuss more of that with Matt. Now, you were talking about the different sizes of the Crestliners before I rudely interrupted you there. Take us through the different sizes and kind of tell us what would be the main purpose of why I choose one over the other.
Sure. So we started with the 1660, absolutely perfect for 2, maybe 3 anglers. The 1870 is hands down my best seller. Just over 18 feet long. It's got a 115/80 4-stroke on the back, and I think that's what you have on your G3, if I'm not wrong. Or no, you don't have a G3 or your jet boat, Captain. It's a Yamaha 115/80. We just serviced that today, so
right.
Beautiful boat. Yeah, the 1870s are hands down my best sellers. 4 people, no problem. All these boats come with 2 pedestal chairs and we can put anything, trolling motors on there, whatever you want. We've got everything there at the store to do it.
And so when you're talking about that's the most popular model, what size of motor are you going to put on that boat? Because one of the issues sometimes in the jet boat that I have, I've got it doesn't plane easy enough. I mean, the boat's heavy in itself, but then you get like 3 guys on there the size of downrigger, and you get a live well full of water. It's tough to make that thing plane.
Yeah. We've got these pods that come on the back of all of our Crestliners, and it's another flotation system that comes out on each side of the big motor. It's kind of like steps. Those are basically built-in systems that allow you to get up on plane quicker as well. Stabilizing pods they're fantastic, and you can add those to any boat as well. But I recommend if you can put the max horsepower on your boat, it's going to perform the way it was designed to. That takes us to our big sled, which is the 2070. That one actually comes with the V8 Mercury 150 Pro XS.
Wow.
And those are really popular as well. That one I do offer with both a jet pump and a lower unit prop. I think that thing would absolutely scream with a prop on it. And I know guys are putting 6 guys in there and running pretty darn quick up and down the river.
And if you folks want to follow along online and look at some of these boats that we're talking about, mon-dak marine.com, mondakmarine.com. Hop on there and you can kind of follow along and look at some of these and look at some of those Crestliners there. Sorry, Captain, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to let people know to
Yes, you did. You
take a look at it.
Let's talk about the wideness of these Crestliners. That's also got to be a tremendous benefit and feature that you sell.
Yeah, you start in the 16 foot, and every time you step up, the beam gets wider, and that's a stability thing. It also allows you to stay on plane at a lower speed. I think in the 1870 that I'm driving right now, I can be on plane at like 14 miles an hour. They're not super fast. I think I top out around 31, but it's not a speed thing. It's all about being efficient.
Right, and you don't, when you're on the river, sometimes speed is not your ally. Sometimes it's a liability, because you got to watch where you're going.
Yeah, and we've all hit, and you're going to hit. It's just a matter of when you see an obstacle and time to hopefully slow down. But the problem is around here, that river goes up and down and fluctuates, and you've got gravel bars. And if you think you're going to hit, my advice is pin that throttle, because that's going to allow you to go through the lowest amount of water. And if you do hit, of course, the speed is the enemy. So there's no good ending to this.
Matt, what about maintenance with a jet as opposed to a prop? Is there any extra maintenance that has to be done on a jet, or is it actually easier to take care of? Okay.
Well, not very often do you, it's a 4-stroke, so do your regular maintenance, oil filters, fuel filters, and oil, once a year. But because it's an impeller in there sliding around, there's an actual zerk on the bottom of the jet pump that I recommend you putting some grease in every other time you go. It doesn't take very much, but it keeps things lubricated down there, so you don't start getting some wear sleeve issues and things like that.
Okay. Go ahead, Captain.
So when we come back, we're going to have a little word here from one of our sponsors that helps bring the broadcast to you. We want to know about, or actually I would like to know about, when you bought Mon-Dak Marine, what I have noticed, the difference inside the store is the amount of merchandise that you actually have on hand. And for a boater like myself and a guy who I read up on things you can put on your boat, I don't have to go online. I can just go to Mon-Dak Marine in Glasgow and buy, and we'll talk a little bit about that stuff. And
one question I want you to think about, Matt, while we're talking about Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, and that is, think about this question, which is, what are the must-have accessories for a boat, and what are kind of more of the, take it or leave it, it's more personal preference. Think about that one. Now let's talk about towing stuff around and having your vehicle right. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer, they have really, really done some incredible stuff here, Captain. The one thing that easiest for me to describe is, you've got these places that have a few trailers kind of sitting out, or you have the big box stores and they go, oh yeah, we sell trailers too, and they got a few of them hanging out in the parking lot. And then you have companies that's what they do. And that's why I'm always sending people to Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailers, because they not only sell them, but they service them. They know all about it inside and out. It isn't an afterthought thing sitting in a parking lot.
Figure you can't buy, I don't think, a better trailer than a Diamond C trailer.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're built. I mean, it's built really good. And their CM truck beds, those are the truck beds that you see a lot of the farmers and ranchers use. The contractors will use them. And there's a reason for that, because they're built to work, and they're built to, you can have some play too when it comes to those types of, trailers and truck beds. And the other nice thing about it is, is that Josh and it's a family-owned deal.
Right.
And so you're dealing with, just like we're dealing with Mattt at Mon-Dak Marine, you're dealing with a family, an individual. Their reputation's on the line. When every sale and everything else that they do, service after the sale, and they'll service other things as well. But I really think you ought to take a real good, hard look at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer Equipment because they are the place that definitely you want to go to in Missoula. Their website is rmtte.com. Richard.
Yeah. Go to that website and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. Huge difference. These are the experts, and talk about, well, gee, I'm not sure what kind of trailer I should get. They will help you with that. So go see our friends there. Now, back to you. Mattt, let's start with my question, and then we'll get into all the stuff that Captain's going to ask you. But when we talk accessories for boats, you can almost, in fact, you for sure can spend as much in accessories as you do for the entire boat. For the person that's just kind of starting out, let's go back to our guy that's retiring. He's not a experienced boater, but he knows he's going to be spending a lot of time in the water. What are the must-have accessories that you should definitely have on your boat? And then what are things that, more personal preference, don't have to have them?
Sure. Well, most all these boats are coming with all the safety features that a guy needs, so we don't have to worry about that so much. There's some laws that we have to abide by here and anywhere that requires things such as a throwable or a fire extinguisher, things like that. But when it comes down to actually rigging your boat the way you want, I think it's really important to start with whatever fish finder, sonar, graph that you want for sizing to put on, the console where you're spending most of your time driving. You just have to get one with a GPS for sure. And out here, the mapping is getting better, whether you're running a Humminbird with the Lake Master side of things, or if you're running a Lowrance with CMAP, or the Garmin that's coming with the Navionics information in it. The depth contours in a lake, it's very valuable for safety, especially if you're not sure. If you haven't been there a bunch of times, you definitely want to get something that is compatible to read a Lake Master chip or some sort of mapping chip. We sell an awful lot of Humminbird stuff around here because the mapping on 4-pack is really good with the Humminbird. So I think that it starts with building a strong system on maybe doing what you want to do in the future, such as, let's say you want to learn how to follow a contour, but you have to start with a graph that is compatible, a trolling motor that is compatible. You definitely want a trolling motor, and some of that's if your big motor dies and all you have is a bow mount trolling motor, you want to be able to get to shore. So
Right.
the rod holders and the placements of the rod holders to where it just makes sense. A lot of times, I work on a boat that it's just a generic placement on all those boats for that rod holder, where I like to get the customer in there and say, okay, here's where you're going to fish. If you're pulling bouncers, you want to be able to see the tips of your rods. You want to be able to reach and grab the handles of your reels without, much effort. Let's just make sure that it just makes sense on where we place everything from rod holders to VHF radios. And of course, sonars, which is a giant expense for all of us, and we just keep adding those things. But you got to start with a good graph at the dash. I think that's a very important thing to start with.
Okay.
The other thing that I've got, for example, they call a tracking system. And before I bought my Warrior back in 2017, I didn't know about that. I saw a couple of guys have it, and I thought, well, that's kind of a unique deal. Tell them about the tracking system that you can install on any one of your boats.
Well, it starts again. It's called the One Boat Network, and Johnson Outdoors, who owns Minn Kota, Humminbird, Lake Master, Cannon. It creates a system to where everything communicates well with each other. The follow the contour feature is probably one of the most utilized features in the link system, and it starts with a compatible network or a compatible graph that's a networkable unit. And then the trolling motor has to be a link trolling motor. And you can add these things to these trolling motors, but it gets really expensive. If you're thinking about getting a new trolling motor for your boat and you are a Humminbird user, I would strongly recommend getting the iPilot Link system. So then you put a Lake Master chip in your Humminbird, and you can do some water level offsets and some different things we can get into at a later date. But it's like having somebody in your boat that is a perfect driver all day long. If we like to fish in 20 feet because that's where the fish are, I tell my trolling motor to follow the 20-foot Lake Master chip, and it just does it for me. And I can also tell it how fast I want to go. So if you like to pull bouncers and blades at 0.7, well, it's going to drive on that 20-foot contour at 0.7 either until you run into another boat or you run out of battery in your trolling motor. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's one tracking system. The track system I was going to referring to is the one on the gunnels.
I got you. The Cisco
because
tracks.
You were talking about fish finders, not fish finders, but rod holders.
Gotcha.
And so instead of the old-fashioned way, where I want that rod holder right there, you drill a hole or you put it, on the rail. This gives you the ability, and anybody who's real fussy, and I don't know if I know anybody about like that I fish with. His initials are DD. That gives you the ability you can do anything you want. You can put it where you want. I mean, let the person put it where they want.
Correct.
I can have a beer. I can have a beer holder anywhere on the boat all the time.
Very true. Yeah, the tracks are really gaining popularity. Some boats don't come with anything. Some boats come with rails, which has been the most popular style. But tracks are gaining huge popularity, and I sell piles of them for adding, forward-facing sonar to downriggers, and then you can get them all the way to 70 some inches long, depending on how much straight area you have on top of your boat. But you can put everything from rod holders on there, downrigger ball holders on there, beverage holders, net holders. I mean, it's endless. Your downriggers can go right on a pedestal and slide right in. So you're right. They're really nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know with Rigger, I always tell him that his beverage holders and the budget for next year.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't have that money allotted for that. But Rigger, you love that type of a system. I
do.
Boat,
I'm kind of a keep things organized freak, and I just love that because, especially when you get in and the fishing really takes off, the last thing you want to do is start looking for stuff. And the way that those systems can be set up in your boat, you got everything right at your hands and all that.
Absolutely.
So
a lot more efficient.
Just another great accessory. Now I want to move to another topic, and this is one where, boy, you can get in some arguments with people and that, but got to ask it because I get this question a lot from our listeners is, okay, used boat, new boat. I hear often so many times people say, no, never buy a new boat. Used boat's the way to go. They really don't get that much use in Montana. Go for that. Other people say, nope, I don't want to buy somebody else's problems. Give us a little guidance there, Matt, as far as when is it time to say, yep, used would be more for what you're looking for, and nope, this is what you're explaining to me. You need a new boat. How do you do that?
Sure. No, that's a great question. A lot of that just comes down to, you got to start with the power plant, the big motor on the back, because that's usually the most expensive piece of a boat. You got to get it looked at. You got to get compression checked. You need to figure out how many hours are on it. It needs to be ran. There's so many good used boats out there. We've all bought used boats. Not very many people are fortunate enough to spend the amount of money to buy a new boat. That's a giant investment. I mean, some of these boats are more expensive than my first house.
Double mine.
Yeah. So it's getting a little crazy. And the price of used boats are also very strong as well. But you got to start with that motor or motors. And you have to have some confidence in those. And if you're buying a used boat, take them somewhere to an authorized dealer for that brand of motor and have them looked at. Pay the $150 to have things looked at. You can plug them all into the computers. We're Mercury dealer, so we can plug everything in to the computer and see if there's any codes or issues or things like that. It's all about the motors. And then, it's not real hard to tell when you jump in a used boat and you walk on the floor whether it's been taken care of or not. If it's
Well,
spongy and soft, I would
good point.
probably steer clear, only because there's bigger issues. Sit in the seats. Are they fairly firm? Are they worn out in the pedestals? Um, and then if you really look at the trailer, even if it's galvanized, you can tell if that boat's been on much gravel and how it's been taken care of. Um, that first impression when you go buy a used boat says a lot, because if you're trying to sell something, you're going to have it as pretty as you can get it. And if it just doesn't feel right, I'd keep looking.
Okay, so
Okay.
you have you said bring it to a dealer. They can put it on a computer, the motor, the big motor, and see how many hours are on it. Is that an important in your mind? I mean, if you have a boat that you've used quite a bit, but you've taken care of the boat, and it's got, say, 600-700 hours, that seems like a lot when you say that, but is that a big deal?
Well, I think that some of it comes down to how many years have you had it to put 600 or 700 hours on it. If you've only had it for 3 years and you have 600 or 700 hours, that's fine. But there's several oil changes that needed to happen within that time and other maintenance issues. Now, I wouldn't be scared to buy a boat with 600 or 700 hours on it. But I mean, the longevity of these boats, boy, they'll go 2,000 hours, 2,500 hours, 3,000 hours. These guys in the salt, they put a lot of hours on their boats. So in the hundreds, if you can do 100 hours a year, that's pretty good. I mean, you're getting the opportunity to get on the water a lot at 100 hours a year. You have to try real hard. So if the boat's 7 years old and it's got 500 hours, that's not too bad. We're pretty lucky out here. If you can put 30 to 50 hours a year on your motor, that's pretty good. I mean, I fished a lot last year and I put 80 hours on my motor. So that kind of puts it in perspective.
I was surprised how little hours I put on my big motor as well. Do you want to, what if a guy says, well, I do all my oil changes myself. I don't have to take it to a dealer. I don't want to take it to a dealer. I did it all myself. I'm just wondering, what are some red flags? Is that a red flag? I mean, sometimes when somebody, a general contractor builds, he's not a general contractor, but he builds his own house. He becomes a general contractor. You kind of wonder some of the things that they do and how legitimate that's going to, are you going to inherit any problems from them? So when it comes to a boat, you want to make sure that they have the maintenance, and how do you check that for sure? I suppose bringing it to the dealer. I'm talking, and the motor's such a big investment on. That's why we're kind of, zeroing in on that. But then, where do they store the boat in the winter?
Sure, you can tell a lot from the amount of dust underneath the cowling on a boat, on where it's stored, how it's stored. Yeah, if you're changing gear lube and you pull that lower plug out, which has a magnet on it, and there's a bunch of metal shavings in there. We've all seen it, and it does happen. It's fairly normal, but there shouldn't be much. And if it's a milky color, it means there's been water getting into the gear lube, and it's just creating issues. So, I like to teach people to at least write how many hours you have and the date on your oil filter on Sharpie, to where you don't have to remember it so much. It's just like, oh yeah, I changed this last year in November, and I had 85 hours on my motor. Well,
what advice?
And you also,
go ahead.
Rick, I was going to ask him. You also take, you will take some trades in some cases, but you consign at Mon-Dak.
Sure, yeah, I do both. The consignment is really easy for both parties involved. I just try to help sell the boat, and the customer, I hook the owner and the purchaser up together, and they do the paperwork. A little bit easier on my end, but I do take trades as well, depending on what we're looking for. And sometimes, like we all know, if you can sell it outright on your own, you're going to get more money. A trade, you don't get as much money, and you just have to be upfront with people and let them know that that's how it works.
Well, you got into the subject I wanted to get into, Captain, which was that, and I really like the fact that you're going to help sell it and do the consignment if it's the right boat and that, because you're a dealership. People come there, and I think when you go to say, "Oh, I'm going to sell the boat myself," and you live, in Montana, a lot of us live off the roadways. A little tough sometimes to get people to come out and check that boat out. So. I think that's a big plus, and the fact that you're right near the water, so you get that kind of traffic. Being right there next to a major body of water, you're going to get the traffic that most people just aren't going to get.
Sure, and we have the opportunity to take a look at the motor with the customer too, and go through a few things. A little bit more peace of mind.
Well. Matt, any other things you want to cover on that? And then we can't wait to have you come back and talk about rigging a boat too. But anything else you want to cover about Mon-Dak and that? We sure appreciate all the time you spent with us and the great advice you've given us.
No, I appreciate you guys letting me come on and visit about my business and my passion. And I'm just super thankful for the community and the business that we've gained here in the last couple years, and looking forward to the future.
I would like to say this about Mon-Dak Marine. The beauty about, people wonder, got a marine dealership in Glasgow, Montana. It's not a real big town, but it's by a big lake. And one of the things that Matt has done with that dealership in Glasgow, it's only 14 miles away from Fort Peck, but he carries a lot of things that you need. And he carries a lot of things that you need when they break, and he can replace them.
So important.
And that's very, very important. And I appreciate you doing that, because
thank you.
I know a number of people that I know would have to go drive hundreds of miles or wait for the UPS or the FedEx driver to come by their door if they were going to continue to fish. And you've got a lot of, you're great in electronics. You got the electric trolling motors. So if something goes wrong with about anything in the boat, you have it in stock. Now, I'm not going to put you in a corner and say you have everything in stock. Nobody does, but you have a lot of things in stock that we need, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we try to keep those items that we know break often in stock, just because it's nothing worse than losing a day on the water, especially if you're on a vacation.
In fact, he has a diagram in Mon-Dak Marine that has a picture of you, downrigger, and says, this is what the most things that downrigger breaks on a boat, and we have them in stock.
Don't let this guy touch anything in my dealership, please. No. Well, hey, Matt, thanks again so much, and can't wait to have you back and talk about all the cool stuff we can rig on a boat too. So 406-228-2900, Mon-Dak Marine. Call him. Matt is great at explaining things, just as he's done for us today.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock, high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we will see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.